What's up, NewThing? Welcome to NewThing Online Training. It's great being with you today, and I'm grateful that you've made time to be with us. I want to say hello to all of our NewThing people in places as close as Chicago and as far away as India. It's great that we have the opportunity to come together like this. I think so. First, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for planting churches and starting new things. What you're doing for the Jesus mission in your community, it's inspiring. No, really, it's awesome. And I can't wait to see what God does in and through you next. You know, when I took the job as director of NewThing in the fall, I was really excited. Then I've had a chance and a privilege and an honor of talking to many of you and visiting many of you. And here's what I've learned. I'm even more excited about what we can do together. That's why we're working hard at the Catalyst team. We're making some changes and we're starting some new things. We're embracing the new opportunities that God is sending our way. We do all this to help us catalyze movements of reproducing churches. Because when we do that, we help people experience a transformational relationship with Jesus. And that changes everything. That's one of the reasons why we offer NewThing Online. We try to bring you some of the most insightful voices, thinkers, and practitioners in the church planting and missional movement to both challenge and encourage you and your teams. It's our hope that NewThing Online training opportunities will accomplish 3 objectives. We want to better equip NewThing network leaders and pastors. We're encouraging our network leaders to use the content from this online training to jumpstart your monthly network calls. We also hope that our NewThing pastors will use this content to train their church staffs, leaders, and leadership residents. To help facilitate this, we've provided you a training resource for you and your teams. You should already have got that email. We also believe that these broadcasts will create synergy throughout our NewThing movement. We all know that vision leaks, and we believe coming together online, it will remind us of why we do what we do and how together we are catalyzing a movement of reproducing churches. Finally, we believe this kind of training gives prospective church planters another reason to jump in with NewThing. See, God has blessed us with access to some of the most cutting-edge thought leaders and practitioners. Now, we know that we can't all afford to go to them, so we bring them to you with fresh, new content. So thanks for joining us. And if you haven't yet, be sure to create a username and password for live stream so that you can jump in on the conversation in the chat room. Now, today's training is from Deb Hirsch. Deb is a conference speaker, a church leader, and a writer. She leads the Tribe of Los Angeles, a bunch of missional artists and vagabonds learning to live in the ways of Jesus. She's co-author with her husband, Alan Hirsch, of Untamed, Reactivating a Missional Form of Discipleship, a great book. And currently, she's writing a book on sexuality with IVP. She also served on the leadership team of Christian Associates, a church planting movement in Europe, North and South America. Now, Deb, she has a heart for the poor and for those on the margins of both the church and broader society. Now, next month is April, and we're going to be preparing for Exponential, so don't expect any NewThing online. Instead, we hope to see you in person at Exponential. Are you making plans to go? Because I think it's going to sell out. I can't wait for it. It's going to be great. Let's just talk about Exponential for a minute. Exponential is the largest church planting gathering on the planet. I mean, on the planet. And NewThing will have plenty going on there. Now, all the details are on the website, newthing.org. Just click the Events tab. But here are a couple of highlights. Monday morning will be our NewThing gathering, and we'll do that in the Student Center from 9 to 12:30. I'm excited to announce that Mac Lake of Launch will be our guest speaker. Now, Mac's work is in the area of leadership development, and it's always practical and effective. We'll also hear vision from Dave and John Ferguson, and we'll offer skills to help you to be more effective in your context. And of course, there'll be plenty of time for huddling together as networks. Now, we're going to buy lunch, but we need you to register, you and your team, so we know how much to buy. Remember, this gathering is for everyone on your teams. Now, NewThing will also be hosting a pre-conference intensive starting Monday afternoon and finishing Tuesday AM. You can check out exponential.org for more. Now, during the conference, we're going to have plenty of workshops going on. So check out the conference site for more details there. And then on Wednesday night is the greatest shindig that'll happen at Exponential. Drum roll, please. NewThing After Hours event at BB King's. That's going to be Wednesday night from 6:30 to 9. I'm stoked. This will be a night of fun, food, and music. It will give us a chance to build relationships with each other and new people. Now, we're going to provide dinner as well, so that's why we need you to register. The After Hours event it's going to be a great opportunity for you to invite people who are interested in our movement to learn more about us. So, please invite them. And did I mention the event is free, but you need to register. And don't forget to check out the NewThing booth at Exponential in the sponsor hall. A couple of things on that. Be sure just to come by and say hello. That's where we're going to be hanging out a lot. And the booth is also a great opportunity for you to connect with potential leadership residents. So if you want to do that, you should really think about volunteering for a time slot. We want to always have people there to connect. Just let me know that you want to be a part of that and we'll send you the details. And then if you're at Exponential and you're lost, you're standing in a hall, you're not sure where to go next, just come to the booth. It's going to be our meeting spot, kind of our hangout center. It's going to be NewThing headquarters. Is that cool? Now, one last reminder. We want each church, team, or group to complete a reproducing plan. I know you've heard this. I'm going to say it again. But I want you to email those back to us. See, I'm really excited about this reproducing plan. We talk about reproducing as a value. And this is one of the ways that we hold each other accountable to that. So I'm asking you to send the plans in so that I can compile the data and we can kind of celebrate that and talk through it at Exponential. Send that to me as soon as you can. All right, let's get to Deb's talk. Yesterday, we sent you a resource to use with your teams. Check the email for that, and I encourage you to use it to talk more about Deb's content. So without further ado, here's Deb Hirsch.
Hi, NewThing. I'm Deb Hirsch, and it's wonderful to be with you here today. Some of you I've met in person, others I haven't. I'm sorry about the camera. I do hope to get to meet you at some point. I love you guys. All you stand for, all the things that you're doing, it kind of just melts my heart because it's the same type of stuff we've been on about for a number of years. So today I'd just like to encourage you as you are planning churches and getting into your neighbourhoods and meeting people and doing the work of the kingdom. Just some of the things that have been, I guess, foundational for me in terms of my paradigm and the way that I engage with God and with people. So I'd just like to share that with you today, and I hope it's helpful for you as you engage in the work of our God. So just 4 things. I'm going to just say maybe call them missional essentials. The first one is to keep your eyes focused on Jesus. Now, that might seem like an obvious thing to say, but the reality is that when you've been around the church for a while, sometimes our view of Jesus can get a little bit cloudy. It's like sometimes, for those that wear glasses, your lens needs to be cleaned a little bit. For me, I try to take stock and look again more clearly at Jesus. That means I go back to my Gospels again and again so I can encounter him and see the way he went about sharing the mission and the kingdom of God. So one of the things that I've found that happens with us is that over time we can domesticate Jesus. We talk about that what we can do as Christians is actually recreate Jesus in our image rather than us being recreated and transformed and conformed into his image. So let's try not to domesticate Jesus. It's easy to domesticate him and I guess lose contact with who he really is. So just clean up the lenses and let him surprise you again and again, because he will do that. And he doesn't ever fit sometimes into the neat boxes that we want to put him in. One of the clear areas that I see this again and again, and a trap that we get into, and I think this is really important as we engage mission, is we need to try and come to terms with the type of holiness that Jesus embodied. Let me say it this way. If we were to ask the question, what was it about the type of holiness that Jesus exuded from his being that actually drew people to him? It wasn't just the ordinary people, it was the people that were really messed up, the sinners, those that were the social outcasts of the day. Here are the very people that were drawn to the most sinless man, well, the sinless man, only sinless man, I guess, that ever lived. And he had this holiness about him that drew sinners like a magnet. Now, the other question, I guess, that naturally goes with that is, what is it about us as believers, as Christians, that often those same type of people are repelled by us? We don't tend to draw them like Jesus did. And I think this is partly because we've misunderstood what holiness or true holiness is. And I think sometimes what we exude isn't really the Jesus type of holiness. It's actually more a form of moralism. Kind of, we very easily get into the kind of the wagging of the fingers and the clucking of the tongues when we're kind of engaging in mission. It's like, oh, what are they doing? And all the rest of it. And that creates a distance. The type of holiness that Jesus exudes is actually one that is redemptive. It's one that is unafraid to get his hands dirty. Jesus hung out with a mess of broken humanity, people that were engaged in all sorts of weird and wonderful behaviours, people that were very far from God. And yet his holiness engaged them, and his holiness was redemptive. We need to make sure that the holiness we are exuding is of the same type of engaging, redemptive holiness, rather than the stand back, kind of looking from a distance at people. Holiness engages the world. It doesn't extract from the world. So that's the first point. Get our lenses clean when we're thinking of Jesus, and be surprised by him again and again. And watch the moralism, because it seeps in very, very quickly. The second thing that I find really important is that not only do we need to clean our lenses when we look at Jesus, but actually we need to kind of take stock of how we are viewing people, how we see the other. Now, often, again, our scripting or what we've been taught to think like is that we are out on mission because people are sinners and they are in need of redemption, they need to come back to God. And that is true. But you know what? There's actually a more fundamental truth than people being sinners, and that is that people are created in the image of God. And that is a primary truth. And I think when we begin to see this and the implication that that will have when we actually encounter others, I think it changes everything. Let's move the sinner lens and put on the Imago Dei lens. So when we encounter the other, it's like, how can I see God and find God in this person? And what that does is it actually gives us access. It's a relational way of looking at the person. If we think of them as sinners, usually we will focus on their behaviour or what they're doing. And that tends to make us take a step back, just like moralism does. We take a step back from the person rather than engaging them. So let me just challenge you to look for the image of God in everybody. Doesn't matter what colour their skin is, what gender they are, what crazy kind of look they've got about them, or what behaviour they're engaged in. God is there in that person. And I promise you, if you do that, it will transform the way you relate to anybody. So Imago Dei first, and yes, they are sinners. There are some sinners out there, but let's get the order right. The other one that comes close to this, and actually I guess presumes this, is that we need to get up close and personal with people. In order to see the Imago Dei in people, we need to be able to hang out with them and look into their eyes and see some of the beauty there. But that means that we need to kind of move out of some of the religious zones that we so easily get caught up in. I have this little saying, and it goes something like this: where you stand, where you put your feet, where you kind of direct your body, where you stand determines what you see. And for many of us, we do get caught up hanging out with Christians all the time, or even within our homes or in our church buildings. And I remember this man, a friend of mine, Jeff. I call him Jeff the Jesus Man, because God challenged him a number of years ago. He was an associate pastor of a church up in Santa Barbara, and God started challenging him about moving into the neighbourhood and getting out on mission. And one of the things that the Lord said to him was, Jeff, I want you to resign from your position as a pastor. And of course this is going to have financial ramifications for him, because he was being paid by the church. But him and his wife worked it out, and he put in his resignation. And what the Lord said to him was, I want you to count up all the hours that you have put into the church and into being with Christians, and I want you to now put those hours into the neighbourhood. I want you to walk around Santa Barbara. I want you to go to areas that you've never been to before in Santa Barbara. Now, when I first met Jeff, he'd been 3 years into this, and I was staggered by the things that he was doing. He had a little missional community set up in one of the parks in Santa Barbara where the homeless were, and they fed them every week, and he'd got other churches involved in coming, and some of the homeless guys were there with their guitars singing along, and it was a wonderful experience. He'd also adopted an apartment block that was riddled with drugs and violence, and in fact it was so bad the police even had an office stationed there because of the stuff that was happening. When I saw this apartment block, it was unbelievable. They had, with the residents, had painted, repainted things. They'd planted a whole big flower bed. They had a prayer meeting where he included everybody in. Didn't matter what faith they came from. That's where he started and how he started with them. They created a whole area for the children. And those people were walking around with more dignity because their environment, their home environment, was more beautiful than what it was before. The violence had diminished, and a lot of the drug dealing and all of that was happening had begun to diminish because people were having dignity and they didn't want to have all of the crime and that in their neighbourhood. So there was a number of other things too that Jeff got involved in, but the prime thing was that he changed his proximity. He moved from the religious zone into the neighbourhood, and it made all the difference. And I know you guys are in your neighbourhoods, and I know that you're meeting people and you are changing your proximity. And that is really important, because you know what? At the end of the day, if we don't see the need, we won't meet it. If we don't see the lost, if we're not encountering people, we're not going to do anything. So if you're standing or spending too much time in religious spaces, my challenge is to get out a little bit more. Even prayer meetings. Sometimes we'll have our prayer meetings in our home or in the church, and I say to people, why? Why do that? Because usually if you think of an average prayer meeting, we'll have teas and coffee together, and then we'll get down to the business of prayer. I say to people, get your prayer meetings out of the churches and out of your homes. Go and hang out at a local coffee shop. Make that where you're going to do your prayer meeting and have your coffee, get to know the people behind the counter, get to see the people that are coming in, and then do your prayer, but do it as a prayer walk around the neighbourhood. Just talking and praying as you're walking around, so you're seeing your neighbourhood, and when you're having coffee, you're hanging out and getting to know some of the locals. Really a simple thing to do, but it makes all the difference. So our context is really important. Where you stand determines what you see. The fourth thing that I want to share with you, and I think this alleviates some of the stress, I think, and even some of the fear that we might have with engaging the other and hanging out in our neighbourhoods, is the whole concept that we need to understand and appreciate that when we go to connect with our neighbours and in our neighbourhoods, we don't take God with us. God is already at work in the neighbourhood. He's at work calling every person to himself in and through the person of Jesus Christ. His Spirit is out there among all of humanity. And that for me is a great relief. That means wherever I engage, I know that my God is already there and he's at work in every person. And we understand this as a concept of prevenient grace. God has gone ahead of us to prepare the way. So when we go and connect with people, rather than thinking that we're somehow bringing God with us, think about when you're engaging and building relationships, looking and listening to what God is already doing in this person. They might not see it as God, but everybody has what we call kind of theophanies or God experiences, whether it's as simple as looking at a sunset and thinking, whoa, look at that beautiful sunset. Is there something beyond that? Whether it's relationships, and the hunger that we have for relationships that point to a greater hunger that we have for our relationship with God. People are experiencing those things. The cry of justice that comes from the human heart that everybody feels, especially we think of the issues of justice today. People are engaging with that. It's coming from somewhere deep. We can point to the greater, to the God that is the God of justice, to the God that is the God of beauty, the creator of all things. So people are engaging already with values of the kingdom and kind of working those things out and having kind of moments. But they're not quite sure what it is. And I like to say that our job is to help kind of join the dots for people. Remember that game we used to play as kids where you kind of join the dots and create all these pictures and things? Sometimes our job is just to listen and see where God is already at work and gently and humbly begin to help people join the dots so that they begin to see that what they're experiencing and what they're feeling, this longing, actually is because God is there and wants to know them. So remember, wherever you go in your neighbourhood, God is already at work. Just listen and look to see what He's doing. And it alleviates a sense of anxiety, because you know what? We don't have to do it alone. God partners with us every step of the way. So I don't know about you, but these have been really helpful for me. And they give me a sense of, I guess, just knowing I'm not alone. And also just the grace of God is there. Somebody once described prevenient grace is that God's Spirit, Holy Spirit, has rushed ahead of us. And I like that concept. I think it's wonderful. So, NewThing people, pastors and wonderful lovers of your neighbourhoods, I hope these things have been helpful for you today, and I look forward to meeting each of you personally. Love what you're doing, and just know that your Lord is with you and we are all on the journey together. And I find that really encouraging to know that you're out there as we're out there and we're doing the work of the kingdom. So thank you, and God bless each of you.
That was great. Doesn't it just feel like an awesome hug when she talks? I think so. Thanks, Deb. Okay, so just a quick reminder that Exponential is coming up at the end of April. The NewThing gathering is Monday. We're hosting a pre-conference on Tuesday. An after-hours event is Wednesday, and that is going to be great. Now, as you make plans for Exponential, please make sure that you put those on your calendar. Thanks for spending time with us again this month. Have a great Easter, and we'll see you at Exponential.